fall of '64, when I started school again. I went to school there one day, and then I transferred the following day. Well, okay, what happened was in '63, when I was going to enter my junior year. Yeah, no, it Dadeville. It was still Dadeville. My father-in-law came. Well, he wasn't my father-in-law yet. I didn't know he was going to be my father-in-law. Anyway, he came over and he had filed all these suits and everything to integrate the school. And he came over to ask me. They had gone to the school board to do this, and he brought a lawyer and some other people over to my house and discussed it with me, my mom, and dad. Well, it just happened that I didn't really know what to do. What they wanted to do was take the two smartest students out of the school and put them in. And that was Teresa. They thought at that time was Teresa and I. Anyway, we were contacted by him and the lawyer and these other people and wanting to know to us be the first ones to do the integration. Well, I didn't know what to do. I got very upset and I didn't know what to do. And anyway, my mom was in an accident that fall, and I ended up staying home the first few weeks of school. I went to school the first day, and then I was home for a couple of weeks helping to take care of her because I was the only one left at home. And I finally decided that I wasn't going to go. In this process of, making this decision, we were brought to the office. The principal called us to his office and asked us to talk to us about whether we wanted to go or not. And he didn't really discourage us, but in a way he started telling us, well, this is going to be all different from here, and all your friends are here, and you're going to be over there, and you're not going to have any friends.
That's what we sort of figured.
Things of that sort. And of course, being very sensitive to anything anybody told me at that time, well, I decided not to go. And but then I got kind of discouraged with the school after a while because there were courses I wanted to take because I wanted to do office work, and I couldn't take any of the courses there. And so I finished my junior year at LaCarp. Well, then that same year was when we transferred and I became LaCarp. And then I went to LaCarp one day, my senior year. I had ordered my ring and I had gotten my class ring and everything. And I decided, well, I'm going to transfer. And the second day, I went over to the school board office and got my transfer papers, and I went to South Carolina.
Because of the classes, it was the main reason?
Yeah, I just couldn't take, and that year I couldn't really take the classes that I really needed if I wanted to go straight from high school into any kind of job.
After that first attempt at integration, you sort of backed down because you didn't want to leave your friends and stuff?
There were other students that did enroll during the summer. They registered to go. So there were several other Indian students that went to South Carolina in the 10th and 11th grade level. I was the only senior that went.
Oh, I see.
How about, did you hear anything about the diploma date? Did you know that it was going to go on to college?
The other ones, yeah, I heard about that. It wasn't certified by the state or something. I had heard about that, and then I heard somewhere else where later on it was, and I'm not really sure which thing to believe.
At LaCarp, our daycare, did you have like sports and stuff? Was it organized?
No.
Just at school?
Just school, and that was it. We had physical education activities, but that was it. And it's not to say that the teachers weren't qualified, but they really weren't. Like you have teachers who are majored in math and teaching math, and you have teachers majoring in science that are qualified to teach science. And these teachers had to teach math, science, bookkeeping, typing, and everything. It really you couldn't really have, even though it was a small school, you couldn't expect them to give you that much attention and help in it. Of course, I did pretty well. And
Did Teresa transfer that year that you did? She graduated from Daco.
she graduated when I was a junior. She was a senior, so she stayed on. She was one person in her class.
She was class.
She was the senior
Was
class.
she first in class?
Yeah.
Valedictorian.
Well, that year she was, yeah. And I gave the welcome address because I was the top junior at that time.
And then she graduated from McCarthy.
Yeah.
How was that year at Terrebonne?
Huh?
Your last year, your senior year at Terrebonne?
At South Terrebonne. South Terrebonne. South Terrebonne. Anyway, well, when I got to school, I went in and talked to the counselor, and she arranged my schedule. I got to take the business course at that time.
That is Mom.
And I made friends. It wasn't hard.
It wasn't like, like I had said last year, you kind of scared your way to find that wasn't. I mean, you didn't have your friends.
Nobody really, see, there were some of the girls that I would talk to that would say, oh, I know that guy must be a Fabian, because she would say, there's one guy that they talked about, and I knew him, because I'd been in school. I can't remember his name.
Okay, so those were kids who had transferred as sophomores.
Right.
Just continuing on.
Right. Okay, anyway, they would say that, and I wouldn't say anything. I didn't like it. But I didn't. No.
Well, they weren't like me about saying he's a savvy and he's saying like describing.
Just saying it's what it
They were talking about something. They knew that there were Indian students that had transferred, but that was the way they called.
Yeah, but that's the case where Indians saw noodles, they couldn't have anything against them.
Well, I don't know what
there weren't any blacks.
Why? Was the blacks a lot of blacks?
No, it was a triracial system. The blacks had their schools, the Indians had theirs.
With the blacks or Indians now, what did you
No, I graduated in '65, and the following year they still didn't have black students, so it must have been in '68 or something. It was late.
I remember my first year at Grant High School when they had the integration, there were blacks there.
What was your first year?
Well, I was in 6th grade. I started in 6th grade. You started in 6th grade? I started in 6th grade with
It was close to the 70s. It wasn't. It was late. It was late 60s.
Any problems with your family?
Yes, a lot. It wasn't. You see, it wasn't as calm as the Indians moving in, because the Indians.
It's like a gradual transition.
It's like just moving from one area to another, and we're basically the same color as most of the whites are. Some of them are even darker than we are. And it was just no really big thing, They just knew the difference because those kids had never been to school there before. So that's the savvy, and that's what they are. But that nobody ever called me that. But one girl that I became very good friends with, she happened to be related to Howard Martin, who was the principal at LaCarbe School at that time. And somehow she talked to him, and I told her where I'd been to school before, and it came into the conversation that we both knew him, and that she was, I don't know if she was related to him or what. Anyway, she said she came back to school one day, and she said that she had spoken to him, and that he said he knew me, and that he was principal of the school where I used to go to. Well, I don't know at that time that she knew it was an Indian school. But then after a while, we were a group of girls, and this girl who I've been real close to, something happened. I'm not real sure how it happened, but I was doing something and she said she didn't want, I don't know, we were sitting in the cafeteria, I believe, and we had a habit of cooking each other's food just for the heck of it, playing around. And one of the girls did that in my plate, and I told her to go ahead and take it. And she turned away. She said no, she didn't want to take a bite out of my plate. And she became very distant after that. And then I found out later on that she found out that I was Indian, and that's why she did that. And I don't remember how I found out, but I know that it came out sometime later.
How did the other friends react? Did they just remain close? Or did
They were still friends with me. And after a while, she just forgot about it, and she accepted me as a friend. And now, whenever I see her, she comes up and talks to me wherever she sees me. And I never developed any really close friendships there, like I did when I was going to Dayville. I mean, I had friends there. I have one particular friend from there that I'm still pretty close to. I mean, I'm not talking about closeness where you see them every single day, but still that you're in contact with that person. But it didn't hinder my grades, changing schools. I still made A's. Got tapped for the Honor Society. Which shocked everybody who rode the bus down here because they were all white. There were 3 Indians riding the bus. Judy Trahan's sister Doris and Doris's cousin May. And they
you have
used
special seating on the bus? Or you sat
and all the other kids down here that knew me, that had known me before, they'd sit with me and talk to me, and I helped them with their homework. And there was one girl who was in 10th grade, and she always, she had algebra, and I was taking algebra, second year algebra, and she'd come and sit with me, so I could help her with her homework.
You had Miss Pierce, right?
She every time I see her and have her talk to her, I don't know why you took her. She's working in the office. I said, well, I thought maybe I'd go into nursing. And then I was tapped into the Honor Society. And then when graduation time came around, and they were doing the seating arrangements, I found out I was, up there with all the smart people, and I was 7th in the class.
Self-care
201. The year I graduated, I don't know. That was
total enrollment.
all animals in my
probably over 1,000. The class that I graduated with was the first class that went the first 4 years, their full 4 years of high school in South Carolina.
You mean there was 9th
Very few 9th graders. After a while, they kind of just picked the kids around the area, that particular area. And the others, they switched to Oakland after a while. Anyway, when I graduated, the night of graduation, there were several girls that graduated down here. And some of the people, the white people, went to the graduation. And they saw me up there and started getting my family with all these Honor Society students, and when after that, when I'd see them around here in the community, then they started talking to me. Of course, before that, they had very little contact with me. It's like, well, she made something of herself, so she's worth talking to. And, I went to my 10-year class reunion. Most of the girls that I knew, and well, some of the guys too, I talked to them.
Graduated with your proper son,
He was a kick out of St. Joe. He came out of St. Joe, and he named his choice to become a public school. And his girlfriend, the girl he's married to was dating another guy, you know. She was so crazy. Talking about it, never even heard of. What's it called again? Which one? Louisiana Coalition for Indian Women. Oh, the reason you never heard of it is it was just formed in February of '78, this year. It came about as a result of setting up. Okay, last June, Lois Salinas and I went to the State Women's Conference in connection with the International Women's Year. We went to the state conference in Baton Rouge, and we met some people there from the Bureau for Women. And of course, Jeanette Campos, who's director of the Cedar Program and Tribal Council, had contact with them too. So there was a VISTA volunteer working at the Bureau for Women, and they decided to set up a program, a conference for Indian women. So with the help of the Coshada tribe in Elton, we used their facilities, and the Bureau for Women got grant money to pay for room and travel for the women who were going to be. You had to apply and get certain scholarships to be eligible to go and get everything paid for. Otherwise, you had to go on your own. And when they first contacted me about it, they asked me to be moderator for a panel. And the panel was going to consist of a woman from New Mexico, an Indian one from New Mexico, one from Mississippi, one from South Dakota, and Arizona, Oklahoma.
Take care.
When y'all gonna come back?
We'll see you before we leave. Your mom's there?
Yeah.
I got a picture I want to show.
And anyway, then they called me about a week later and said, well, the woman we were going to pick to be the representative for Louisiana Indian women to speak at the conference on this panel, Jeanette Campos decided, well, we're not going to, she's not the right person, so to ask me. So I was asked to be a speaker at that conference. So I was on this panel of 5 women, all Native American women, and I was the representative for Louisiana Indian women. So I had to get information on what it's like to be a rural Indian woman, on the health problems, transportation, and so on, education, things of that sort.
Where did you get all that information?
Okay, I got it from the different tribes, and I had pretty much contact with them, and I knew
You still
that.
have that stuff?
See you after a while.
Not really. I didn't put it down in any basic form. I just had notes. Well, it's a good thing I was taking a speech course. I was taking a speech course that same semester, and so it helped out a lot. And I just contacted the different tribes and got a little bit of information from them, and from what I had, and I knew, well, all the problems were similar. So I just put it all together and spoke on each different area, and what our needs were in those basic areas. And the other women spoke on the problems in their areas. And when kind of spoke about their health programs and things like that. Anyway, there was a 2-day conference held in Elton, and it was sponsored by the Bureau for Women, and at the facilities at the tribal center of the Coshada tribe. Okay, that was in November of '77. Then sometime in January, early part of February, got a letter from the Bureau for Women again, saying that they had applied for a mini grant to get money to have 3 workshops to develop some type of program for like to sort of unite the Indian women and get something going and maybe see if we wanted an organization or not. Okay, so we had the first workshop we had was held in Baton Rouge. We had the tribal chairman was sent a letter. He was either to select or have a group of women, and they would choose, have a meeting, and the women would choose 2 representatives. And there were 2 representatives from each tribal organization. There were 2 from the Home Alliance. There were 2 from the Home Tribe Incorporated, 2 from the Biloxi, 2 from the Choctaws, 2 from the Coshada, and 2 from the Chittimacha. What were the 2 from Deborah Liner and I, and then Lois was the alternate. And when the other tribes had picked 2, and then an alternate also. And we were reimbursed. We were reimbursed for meals and for travel going to these meetings. Well, the first meeting we had was we just kind of introduced each other because we didn't all know each other, and we had a guest speaker from the Women's Center at Loyola University in New Orleans. And we kind of jot down what our needs were and what we wanted to do, what we felt we could do as Indian women to help our people. And from there we just stemmed off, and then we had our second meeting, and well, the first meeting had publicity. We were on TV and everything, and they said, oh, these Indian women are going to get on the warpath, you know. Anyway, we got that meeting done, and then a month later we had another meeting, and developed similar things, and then decided, well, we would like to form an organization. And so we started developing goals and bylaws and things to go by. And we had another guest speaker there who gave us an assertiveness training and goal setting. And in our third session, yeah, the third one, we finally decided we were going to have 4. Right, the third one, we elected officers, and we had a president, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. The president was Phyllis Seminoe from the Chittimacha. Vice president was Cheryl Allen from the Choctaws. Secretary treasurer was me. And this is the first Indian women organization in the state of Louisiana. So it's kind of a big first. And then the woman who's in charge of the Bureau for Women, she inducted the officers into their positions, and we adopted bylaws. And then we decided that each tribe was going to go to its own tribe. Each tribal representative was going to go to its own tribe and set up a chapter. And then we would, from there, join together with them.
So what were some of the goals? First of all, what were the problems you said you found that were common to all of them?
There was...
Or not all of them.
Well, some of the things, like most all the others, there was problem with education. And then with the working mothers having adequate daycare.
Now with education,
Okay, the education is particularly like in Indian women who have already been to high school or going to get their GEDs or something like that. They're, well, just this year, we've got our own program. The parish has a program, but they don't provide transportation. And that was another problem connected with that.
Is that one where the men do have a more specialized program and the women just aren't included? Or it's just not?
Well, they're just, what do you mean?
Like I said, the parish have their own program.
Yeah, the parish has a parish-wide program, different schools, for a person to go to study to be able to get a GED.
But it's not a particular problem for women. It's just for
no, it's just for everybody, right?
But the women's education is just automatically worse because the stress less for the girls to go on, right?
Well, you see, it's been historically that the girls drop out of school and get married at a real early age, especially down here. And it would be to their advantage to go on to school because the husbands can't always provide everything for them like they would really want to have, and they would be able to go out and get a job. And then, of course, then you would need an adequate daycare center where you wouldn't have to spend all your paycheck on to be able to put your children in, you know, so that you could go to school.
Yeah, there's the daycare center in Dulac. That's it for one of the centers.
That's the only one.
That's going to be closed on. And it doesn't look like the Indian woman does that one particularly. I mean, because one thing I forgot what I was talking to you about. Talking about daycare, saying that the Indian women have the advantage over, like, the family structure makes it easier for an aunt or a cousin or somebody to take care of the baby instead of sending it off to daycare. But that's still something. That's changing too because more and more women are going out to work and they're not turning around to take care of it.
So they're getting smarter, they're getting educated, and that's one of the things we want to push. And, well, some of us there were examples because we had been out of school for quite a while and decided to go back, you know, and we're going to school, we're working, and we have families, and it's hard to do, but we're doing it because that's, you know, we want to achieve something.
There wasn't daycare. Where did that daycare start?
Huh?
The daycare at the center. You've been there at the center for the last 10 years ago. When did the daycare start?
70.
Did more people use it? Has it gone down to like everything else?
Okay, the reason what happened over there was they got more and more stuck on government help and following the rules of the government so that they could get government funds. And people who were going to be private placements, they had to top that money that the government was paying per child, the state was paying per child, and they couldn't afford it. Before that, we were just charging our own rate. We didn't have to meet anybody's. We were charging like $1.50 a day.
What is it?
Oh gosh, it's $12 or $15 a week. Versus $7.50 or something.
So it was daycare centers and then what else did you talk about? Health products.
Okay, one of the things is there's, especially in the rural areas, the Kushatas have the same problem we have. Well, the Chittamachas live on their reservations. They don't have any doctors or nurses or anything living there providing care. If you want any help, you have to leave here and go to Homa. They finally got a drugstore whenever it was, about 3 or 4 years ago.
All that money that's looking
I mean, there wasn't even a drugstore here now.
there.
There. So
Shot.
that,
Oh,
and the center's down there.
Okay.
Other
I meant in that Dulac person.
It's just been here for about 3 or 4 years.
What about family planning? Did they talk about that much as a problem, something they want to see? Or is that still?
Not really. We didn't discuss that. Not in the end. They're pretty much. They're pretty much planning their families now. You know, the only problem is there are a lot of young girls who are.
Yeah, it's the young girls who don't have.
Who
I mean, they have to get the pill from somewhere or whatever they're going to use. And I know in the cities usually there's clinics and there's nothing down here.
No, there isn't home. There's a family planning at home.
But that was a problem.
It's not really. It's not pushed until after, and it's only available to those people who are like every. The other problems is like transportation. If you want to even get to the doctor, and you don't have a car, you don't have transportation to get there.
That was one thing that surprised me. Bruce told me they used to have a bus that runs from Dulac to Homer, and they cut that. That's really terrible.
And just, well, it was a privately owned thing, and it just wasn't making enough money at that time. And it was costing like $2 to go into town, and then a lot of people had cars, or if they didn't have cars, they figured, well, a brother and sister or somebody was going to take them to town.
But really, most of the problems that were being talked about were the problems that not really particularly the women, but just problems that come from the fact.
Right.
So the organization isn't.
It's not specifically. No, it's not specifically designed just for women. It's for us to help the total tribe, not just the women. It's just that it's to make the women aware that there is something that they can do for their people.
And that's a record for anybody. I can see
the transportation is a lot worse for again, like you said, the rural. Most Indians in Louisiana are rural. Most of them are right here. Their own parents.
Yeah. It's the largest group of Indians in Louisiana.
It's a key for us, I'll tell you that.
So that's a good.
You've done a lot of shows like this, haven't you, Nancy?
So we're going to be having,
Your first show?
we're supposed to be having meetings every quarter, once every quarter, and then we're supposed to plan an annual meeting where we would have a conference similar to what we had last November.
What do you think you can do about these things? Like, you've got that van now. Do you think there's some way you can get that van making runs to town? I mean, it does with Bruce, but other people who have to go to town can't take advantage of it. Something like that?
Well, that helps, but then you see we have to raise money too. Well, since we're not federally recognized, we don't really have any money coming in anywhere.
That coalition isn't bringing in any money. That's purely a kind of thing to give you an idea.
Right. If they would get money, it would only be a small amount, and it would only be for specific little things.
What's the bigger organization? The Bureau of Women, is it called?
Yeah, the one in Baton Rouge.
And that doesn't have money funds to pass out.
Who's head of that?
Pat Evans. Assistant with the Black College.
Jeanette is Indian, is she?
Yes. Part of
So everything's really frozen. I mean, you can have as many goals and objectives as you want, but you can't do anything about it.
Right. The main thing we were getting together for is to be able to. We were going to find ways to help each other, different tribes in the state. If we had ideas, we would get together with them and share our ideas and maybe find a way together to develop it into something constructive to be able to do something.
The other tribes to have the advantage.
Two of
more
them.
money.
Chittimaches and Cashadas.
Does the Houma tribe participate in some of these things? I'd like to learn.
Yeah, the Houma tribe has 2
People
representatives.
at home, yes.
Not that we ever did.
Well, you said you got the different guidelines now, so it looks more like federal recognition is going to be possible. Now, those guidelines you sent us, is that a proposal to go, and it's like far off? They're not guidelines yet, they're proposed to be new guidelines, is that it?
They're proposed rules and regulations, yeah.
They haven't been passed by Congress yet, right?
No.
From what I understand from Janda, that they were most likely going to be passed.
Yeah. You just have to,
As a result of that.
what you really have to do is, you have to make those people in Congress aware that you're there and that you need this, you know, and that
And that's within your coalition.
right. Yes, we're supposed to be able, we work to support any type of legislation that's going to help us.
Another thing is that I guess it couldn't hurt, but it would really help if we had a merger with the Houma tribe.
Yeah, that would help.
Why do you think we can't seem to do it? Would you like to see it done? Or would you like to see it done?
I'm sort of on the borderline with that.
I mean, not like saying that having one person ahead of everything, but
What
just
are
like
the disadvantages of that?
Well, the disadvantages would be, okay, if you have one person heading it would be really terrific. Having one council and having representatives from the different communities, like, okay, you have Dulac, Lodge, Montague, Conishan, Golden Meadow, and there are even some in St. Bernard Parish. Okay, you would have to have representatives from each of these communities in order for it to be equal, to be able for each community to have a voice in it. As I see it, that's what's holding it up. Is that's the way Howard would like to see it too. And when we first organized the Home Alliance, that was brought up. Helen Gindirect came over and we discussed that with her and proposed this to her and saying, well, if you want to get together, this is how it should be, you know. I mean, there should be equal representation in each community, or even according to the Indian population even in that community. But then you see that would have taken away from their community because the majority of them are here in Terrebonne Parish, whereas she lives in the Fourche Parish. And there are quite a bit over there, but then most of them are here in Terrebonne, whereas Terrebonne covers Dulac and Dulorge and Conishan and all those places.
So she didn't like that idea?
The disadvantages, I'm trying to think of how to say what I want to say. What?
When you talked to her about that, she wasn't interested in...
Well, she said she was going to think about it, but then nothing ever came about it. At that time, she was, she wanted to be very powerful. She had all the ends to the government people. She figured she knew everybody and could be able to get into everything. And she wanted to be the head of it. And well, we wanted someone to be elected to be the head of it and have a tribal election, which is how we got ours. Well, since that never came about, she just kept her group and we kept ours. And we worked for our needs here, and they worked for theirs over there.
Even with such a merger, I don't think we have to resolve the whole law.
It wouldn't be, okay, what it is they wouldn't be, you'd have to pick one name, neither one of them being the other's name.
Yeah, well,
none of them would be, neither one of them would be swallowed up by the other one, in other words. It would be just joined together and becoming one under this new name.
Like, I mean, they could pick an area like mine.
It would really be, the reason, one advantage of it would be that it's the largest Indian population in the state of Louisiana, and for that large population you could get more federal money by counting everybody together instead of having one group counting one group and one counting the other, and they're missing lots of people. Right.
So
I'd like to see sometime, if you could, I know you just love to dig things up, but I'd like to see what the old federal guidelines are and the new ones. See how they change.
I don't even know if we have a copy of it. Janine, maybe the one that has that.
Janine?
I can't say that, no, not down here.
But I would think, I don't know, this is just what I'm jumping to, the same problems that women have every place in the country, but it's a little bit exaggerated because of the isolation. It's like 5, 10 years back in time. But the problems are really different.
No, because that's one of the things we went over at the first conference we had back in November. It wasn't just, this was an Indian Women's Conference, but from it we realized that, well, it's not only Indian women or all the Indian people who have this, it's everybody's problems.
But it seems to me, and I think you'd agree, that the Indian women, and I don't know if it's because of Indian or I think it's mostly because it's rural, the problems, say with, if you're talking about marriages, divorce, child support, problems like that, they point to women's or family planning. It is like 10 years behind what they're likely to be doing in the cities, the big cities.
Yeah, well, in that case I would say that when that happens, when certain things happen, okay, and if it happens to an Indian, okay, say an Indian girl would get pregnant, well, now it's not looked upon so badly, but before that, well, it's because she's an Indian, or she's a Sabian, you know, and that they're no good. There was a lot of prejudice, you know, without any real reason, but it had always been that way. It's gradually getting out of it to where not only Indian girls get pregnant, white girls will get pregnant too and have babies and not be married. So the problem has become a problem of everybody in the community. It's all
What do you mean when you say something about problems but 10 years behind?
Oh, like, well,